Okay, so hello, my divine infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And we're about to start our recording for Voice America. And I know you guys are here on the live stream. I'm going to try to get your questions this time. And we're going to be doing the whole thing on the live stream if you stay for it. And if not, the second part will be offered next week, this time, same station on Voice America Live. So, and we've got Jane here. So we've got some great guests. So stay tuned and I'll try to watch your questions. And I'm just going to take one break, Matt. Okay.
Got it. One break at the half. All right, here we go. Starting in 13 seconds.
Perfect.
Have a great show.
Thank you.
Management. Welcome to the Infinite Monroy. Over the next hour, you'll learn how you can become part of the new consciousness renaissance by evolving yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, and socially to embrace your true divine infinite nature and become an infinite human and co-creator of the new infinite earth. Now, here is your host, Elizabeth Monroy.
Hello, my divine infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And we have an amazing show for you today. And the topic is the restoration of the divine feminine and the divine masculine within. And we have two amazing guests. I am just so thrilled to have them here. Our first guest is Dave Emery. He's born in Ireland and a little bit after the Second World War. So he's a man of wisdom. And he moved to England at the age of 7. His youth was captivated by three things: history, mystery, and tennis. And after university, he became a national and international tennis pro, and then a fitness trainer. 25 years later, he was a teacher of English and history at various levels, and now he is a writer. David has written a number of books, from children's stories to historical novels, and now is currently writing his latest, entitled Beyond the Biblical, which sounds fascinating. I can't wait to read it. He calls it the history we were never told, and he's the man to tell it. A frequent popular guest of New Earth Horizons Lazarus Initiative, David became a senior fellow of the New Earth University in 2022 to share his important body of work, writings, and teachings, which align with New Earth University's School of Consciousness and Spirituality. He is now delighted to present this to you, a unique online workshop based on his latest historical research. And the lady of the month, who, if you've been following along, you've heard her before, Jane Evershed. She's our guest today too, and she's an artist and a visionary for an optimistic future. She is also a researcher sharing and speaking the real truth of our history, including our galactic history. Her specialty is uncovering the big picture to reveal the end game behind the hidden agendas that are hostile and invasive angelic humans, and our consciousness evolution as a sovereign species. Jane Evershed is also an art historian, the head researcher for the Lazarus Initiative, and appears as a regular guest with Sasha Stone on New Horizons. She is an artistic director and workshop contributor at the New Earth University for the Living Arts. Jane is also a writer, a speaker, currently working on educating in the area of creative currency, the most valuable asset on Earth. She also speaks about the importance of the rebirthing of the disappeared nurturing mother archetype as part of the healing process toward reaching the new earth paradigm. She was born in the UK, grew up in South Africa, and now lives in Minnesota playing grandmother. And these are our very wise, and not only are they wise, but to me, they kind of are the archetype of this divine feminine and divine masculine, which is in both of them. So I'm so glad and excited to hear their wise words. And I just want to take a moment, because you may hear some things that you may not understand, and you may say, "What in the world is she talking about?" Or you may even feel a little drowsy and fall asleep, but if you're driving, don't do that. So don't worry, because you are hearing them at a very high level. Even, your higher selves are assimilating this information, and it will come to you at the right moment. So just allow yourself, and we're going to weave in and out of some of the high metaphysical concepts and ground them into how this affects you in your daily life. But just to kind of ground yourself and collect yourself, let's take a really brief moment to breathe in the two most powerful words ever uttered in the English language, breathing in I am, and exhaling infinite love, love, love. And breathing in I am, and exhaling infinite truth, truth, truth. And once again, breathing in I am, and exhaling infinite source, source, source. And now just open yourself up to receiving. I hope this will be a very healing, inspirational, and educational experience for you. And now, without further ado, we're going to bring our beloved Dave Emery here. So excited to have you here, Dave, really. So, I have a question for you. And the first question is, okay, the first question is, could you please, in the way you so beautifully explain the high creation mechanics of our universe, kind of break it down for people to understand, the origin of creation. Just a small question, and how that, the first emanation of the spark of matter, antimatter, or the electrical magnetic, and how the whole divine feminine, divine creation kind of got into play.
Wow. Well, let me explain the detailed history of the cosmos in the next 2.5 minutes. It can't be that hard, can it? Okay. Well, look, let me just say that let's keep it simple. And this is my interpretation. You will have your own, because you are sovereign beings. You have your own viewpoints about everything. I'm giving you mine. So everything is pure consciousness. So that you might call it God, Unisci, all that is. Anything like that, that is pure consciousness. And of course, pure consciousness is pure energy. They are one and the same. And that exists everywhere, in every moment and in every particle. And it is who you truly are. Now, when I say things like that, people say, well, I don't feel much like this God source or this pure consciousness. I mean, why can't I do this or that, or what? This has happened and that's happened. Well, that's because you are here in your incarnate self, which is the lowest density of particles that can exist. That's the lowest and the heaviest density particles. Now, if you transposed your pure consciousness identity self right now, here, into your own physical body, everything in this universe would disappear in an explosion, because it's too big, it's too powerful. The radiation frequencies are too vast. And so what did pure consciousness choose to do? It chose to downstep the frequencies, the radiation flames, so that they would be able to be represented in different domains, lower external holographic domains. And through these domains, such as the one we live in here on what we call Earth, through these domains, we can experience ourselves in all sorts of ways that we may choose, because that's free will choice. Now, in the process of all of that happening, of course, lots of distortions did happen, because it's a free will universe here. And so this is what we are navigating now. All the way through many of our lifetimes, we're navigating the distortions so that we can climb the stairway back to know that we are pure consciousness and become as we really are and have never left. So that is essentially the story of you and the story of me and the story of every single particle, every animal, every plant, everything. That is the story. However, the dynamics of it, the cosmic scientific principles, are, of course, extremely complex. But essentially, Elizabeth said, she mentioned electrodynamics and magnetism and so on,
The
and light and sound.
electromagnetic, yes, of the creation of masculine and feminine.
Yeah. Well, essentially what happens is that in pure consciousness, in God's source, everything exists in the same space and time. In space and time doesn't exist in reverse in the consciousness of purity. However, what happens is that we've got antimatter, antimatter, matter. We've got polarized everything in pure consciousness. Everything exists together. But as we downstep, we are downstepped in a polarized format. So we have, as pure consciousness, which is our base mechanism, we have antimatter, A-N-T-E, antimatter, which is all matter of every kind. And that Partiki, that tiny little particle of antimatter, is what creates the polarization. And it creates the polarization of antimatter. That's what we call a Partiki, a very, very tiny aspect of the original pure consciousness. And it out of and that Partiki, that antimatter, comes out of the Particum particle. All right, so we have three particles: the Partiki, which is the original pure consciousness of God source. All right, and it is antimatter and it is omnipolar. And out of that come the other two particles. Now, the first particle, and this is where Elizabeth's talk here today is specific. The first particle is sound. Sound comes first. In fact, in the Bible, it says in the beginning was the word. That is sound. Sound is the glue which holds matter together. It creates matter. Out of sound, which is magnetism and vibration, and what we call feminine, out of that comes light, which is the Partiki piece, which is electric, which is light, and which is masculine. So you have your initial pure conscious Partiki. This aspect of the Partiki is so small. It's infinitely small. It is, you can get 1/800 billionth of a billionth into one light photon. It is so small, and yet it is God consciousness, pure consciousness. And out of that Partiki comes the sound particle, Particum, that's the feminine. And out of the feminine comes the masculine, the light particle. Now, of course, in the Bible, it gives you an inverted view, a reverse frequency of that, doesn't it? It says that out of the man, Adam, comes the woman, the feminine. Well, that's a deliberate reversal of the cosmic principle of generation. So we have three particles, okay? Partiki, which is pure consciousness. And then we have Particum, which is the matter particle of the feminine. And then we have the light particle, which is the masculine. And they phase into and out through fission and fusion. This is a radiation protocol. And so as they phase in together back into God's source, they reconstitute themselves through the energy of source of that Partiki. And then what do? They separate. In the Sanskrit text, it talks about Brahma breathing in the universes and breathing out the universes, right? It's the same process. So the feminine draws through her magnetism the energies of the masculine back into God's source. And then the masculine expands outwards through the thrust quotient, which is what it does. It goes outwards. It goes outwards into the universe and creates, and then comes back in to the feminine, who helps him to replenish his energy from source. In fact, the Cherokees have a proverb which says that the man goes out into the world to explore, And the woman is what pulls him back to replenish his spirit. Now, that is the divine feminine and the divine masculine in action. And that is the primal protocol of creating the holographic universes through these two polarities. And that is probably the simplest way I could explain it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And let's bring Jane on here just to get her very grounded, wise women words on this. Jane, do you want to make a comment on a beautiful, beautiful explanation of creation,
Yes,
sex at the highest level?
Well, as you know, I'm not as familiar with the Ashiana Dean writings as Dave is, but I sit over in my own little corner here, picking my nose and thinking. And I've been on this quest for what the true Trinity is. And in this quest, first of all, of course, I stumbled upon the death cult Trinity, which was created by the 3 bombs, Trinity, Nagasaki, and Hiroshima. And I looked at that, and I could go into that in more detail later if you want. But the real reason I'm bringing that up is because I think I've hit upon the ultimate life force creation Trinity. And it is indeed, it's the ether, which is really the father, and it's Tara, Terra, earth, which is really the mother, and their 3 children are fire, air, and water. And I came upon this just, out of the blue. Sometimes these things come to me. And, Plato and Pythagoras, just so well-known philosophers, and everybody thinks they're so great. But can I just tell you, I think they got it all wrong. Because what they did was they took 4 elements and they said air, water, fire, and land. And they wrote mother off and they disappeared her out of the equation a very long time ago, around about 500 BC. And since then, we've lived with this mistake, intentional mistake. And everything, these 3 children are conscious. And science will tell you that fire has no consciousness. But I don't believe that. Water has consciousness, fire has consciousness, and air has consciousness. And by the same token, I believe that air is different from the ether. Ether is a far greater thing that goes out and gets its wisdom from the divine wisdom of the cosmos and brings it in and down to the mother. By the same token, that father is electrical and the mother is magnetic. The earth is magnetic. So it fits exactly the Ashiana Dean writings, but in my little pea brain way. What do you think?
I just want to add one thing because you mentioned Ashiana Dean twice, and she's a speaker, and so much respect for all the work she's done. But just to really position this information that's being shared here, I call it almost forbidden knowledge. It's really all the information that we're supposed to have that has been given by many speakers throughout the eons. And I listened to Dave talk about the Seminole and the Hopi, were one of the last speakers before. Each age has speakers, because this information was really from the Mahabharata or the Emerald Records, the Sitadori plates that Yeshua wrote down, and everyone that comes here, tries to get it in writing. And every time it is, the people who hold this information are murdered for it, and it's stolen. And most of it is underneath the Vatican right now in 53 miles of hermetically sealed libraries. So it's really our right, and part of the mission that I have with this talk show is to get this information out. I don't say, and as Dave said, I never tell anyone to believe what I say, only take what resonates. But the goal is not to teach you something that someone, an Ashiana Dean, said, but the goal is to remind you, because this is information that's also stored within our DNA. And as the channels open up, we access the true history of the planet, the true mechanics of the universe, the true ascension mechanics. So, what say you, Dave?
Well, I resonate with everything that you said there, Jane, especially about the ether and the consciousness being within everything. Absolutely. I will answer your question, Elizabeth, but let me just say that I
Yeah,
watched
please.
a very interesting talk by Michael Tellinger, who I respect enormously.
Oh yeah,
And he was being asked, the critical question, what is energy? And of course, energy is consciousness, as I mentioned. Its consciousness is everywhere. This pure consciousness is the energy of the cosmos, and it drives everything. So that energetic consciousness is who we are. Now, with
yes.
regard to your question there,
And brilliant observation, Jane, by the way. That was so powerful. We need to really be aware of that. Sorry, go ahead.
So with regard to the explanation of what is our right to know, we are God source beings, so we know all this in our encryption. We have an encryption at the highest levels of God source. That is who we are. That is our identity. This is why everything that Elizabeth talks about and Jane talks about and Sasha Stone talks about, all the people who are angelic indigos, such as you people listening now, you're angelic indigos. You have all of this knowledge encrypted in your codes. So why is it that we now have to have speakers and that Elizabeth now is explaining these things to you, etc.? It's because of the distortions that took place deliberately and were engineered into the grid of Earth so that we would forget. And that is the actual history of who we are, why they did this, and why it was so important for us to not know who we are. And the story behind that is the story that has rarely been told and never been listened to. So yes, to Elizabeth, what you have just said, it is so apropos. All of this knowledge that we have, it is our mission, it's our purpose to explain it and to help with the reclamation of our own true identity as God source beings. And I can tell you that I'm very excited because that is happening through the work of people like Sasha Stone and our own beloved Elizabeth here. All of this information and knowledge and spirit-based understanding is coming through.
Well, I'd like to take this discussion now into kind of the level of that, the distortions, because you just so beautifully, both of you explained how the electromagnetic in the masculine and feminine is an intricate part of every aspect of creation. And sometimes we think of polarization, stuck in this realm of duality, like it's either or, it's good or bad. And then what we see today, ironically, because of these distortions, is we see a war between the sexes, which is actually a war inside of us because we are both masculine and feminine. And, we see the suppression throughout history of the male against the female, but really the wounded male was losing too, because he was losing that part of himself every time he suppressed that divine feminine within, and the world, every time it lost its divine eternal mother and the relationship with our mother earth as consciousness. So maybe we could just kind of visit that, how we're in such a fallen state right now. And as you said, we are returning, we are ascending. And I believe an intricate part of the ascension process is reconnecting that divine foundation, that hierogamic union of divine masculine and divine feminine, healing the wounded female and the wounded male within first. And then, just that's the foundation for arising above duality into the higher dimensions of which we call ascension. So who would like to comment on that?
Go on,
Jane.
I'll say something.
Okay.
Let's look at the word divinity and divine feminine, divine masculine. The word divine means connected to God's source, and it's also connected to a word God, kund, which is kind, but in German it's C-U-N-T. And what the patriarchy does is it inverts and perverts everything. So the worst thing that you could ever call a woman is a C-U-N-T, which is God kind. The word C-U-N-T is connected to country, earliest abode, kin, all these beautiful things. So that's what they do. And they chop up the world and they say, well, in the West, we're going to have women walking around in thongs and nipple caps. And over here in the East, we're going to drape their whole body in black so they look like a black garbage bag with a slit for the eyes. Now, have at it, world. That's all they do is invert and pervert. And they've done this in so many ways, and especially with sex. They have absolutely and totally destroyed it and made it into this very horrible, disgusting thing associated with guilt and shame. And so that the male and female now can never have that sacred union, you know, where the world explodes and you get connected to God's source and all this stuff happens. I mean, it happens very rarely. And when it does, it's usually suppressed. So that's what I have to, and we have to look at the fact that they took this word divine and they absolutely destroyed everything that was divine. That was their mission, to invert and pervert. And I could give you so many examples of that, but let's have Dave have a go.
Well, listen, Jane Evershed, I love you because you are a real warrior, because you stand back not at all from telling the truths as they are. I think that what you've just explained is absolutely pivotal, and all hail to you, because you see, it's that sort of straight talking that we actually require right now. And that is, I mean, I know about straight talking because when I was brought up in a heavily Protestant childhood, where you had to use language very, very carefully and cleverly. And in fact, I wasn't really using language at all. I was using magic spells, their language. And that was designed to make sure that I never actually accessed the truth and never certainly told it. That's what we have with legality, all the things that come out in legal documents and so on and so forth. So yes, what you've just been saying, Jane, I really respect that. That's true. So what about these distortions? Well,
You know what?
then.
Before we get into that, we need to take just a really short break. When we get back, let's look at the hidden history of the planet a little bit and the distortions that we'll talk about then. And if anyone has a question for our panel, please write it in, or you can call in. Okay, and we'll be right back after this short message. Matt?
For more empowering words from Elizabeth Monroy and Dr. Peter Monroy, check out their latest book, The Infinite Human, an ascension guide for starseeds, twin souls, and awakening infinite humans. The co-creators of the new infinite 5D Earth. You'll also find many spiritual books to help both children and adults in their ascension back to home, to infinite God Source. Isn't it time to be part of the new consciousness renaissance? If this resonates with you, please subscribe to our website at infinitehuman.com and become part of our growing Infinite Human family.
Welcome back to the Infinite Human Talk Show with your host, Elizabeth Monroy. Do you have a question or comment for Elizabeth or her guests? Please call us at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. You can also text or email your questions and comments to infinitehumanproductions@gmail.com. Now, back to the show.
Hello, and welcome back. We're here discussing the restoration of the divine masculine and the divine feminine within. And we're with Jane Evershed and Dave Emery, and we're about to embark on the hidden history and basically why there are so many distortions. At the beginning of this discussion, Dave Emery gave a wonderful explanation of how everything in the universe is really divine feminine, divine masculine, and electromagnetic, and works in complete and beautiful harmony. And Jane talked about how we were connected, and I call it the divine is the vine of life, connecting to the vine of source, and the parasites severed that connection, and so they have to parasite off of others. So they're like fruit that's disconnected from the divine of source. So we're going to look into what happened in our hidden history, and I'm thinking a lot of what, as a female, what the trauma and the memories that I have that are now surfacing, and is part of, I think, the healing process of MK Ultra trauma-based mind control, of all the Leviathan, raider races that would come and kill our twins, our masculine counterparts, and then rape us for our genetics, and then we would be forced to bear like this demonic spawn. And that certainly did a number on that divine union between the male and the female. So Dave was about to tell us about that before our break. Could you please go on?
Well, so many things have happened over so many millions of years, tens of hundreds of millions of years. Yeah. But anyway, let's fast forward to the fact that, yes, the masculine and the feminine are energies and movements of energy, which are absolutely vital for the divine movement and the repetition of our cosmic universe. They are absolutely critical. So you have to have an alignment of energies between feminine, masculine, electromagnetism, oscillation, vibration. That's what it really is about. And originally, long ago, this relationship between the masculine and the feminine was perfectly aligned. And that's why we could so easily remember who we truly were and our cosmic history, and all of our soul family as well in all the higher dimensions. But all of that disappeared, of course. And I'll give you an example of how that happened much more recently. I'll come down from the hundreds of millions of years down to just a few thousand and explain something. But let me first say that what Jane was saying about how they, the cabal, etc., have perverted everything. If you've seen the film, The Adjustment
Bureau,
which is a very good
Adjustment
film.
Bureau, you got it there.
The Adjustment Bureau, yeah, and that's a very good film simply because it shows how a group of patriarchs, men, have been trying to stop two people, a man and a woman, who have this instinct for loving each other. It stops them from getting together, and it kept saying, don't let them get together, because if they get together, this is going to happen. In other words, something powerful will happen. So they had to disconnect the alignment of the masculine and the feminine energies. Now, we, each of us, in this life, I'm a masculine, obviously. In my previous one, I was a feminine. But in this one, I'm a masculine. And I have certain crystals within me, which are feminine crystals, called adore crystals, okay? And the feminine counterpart, or any lady here, would have masculine crystals, which are moda crystals. And so the moda crystals, although they're masculine, they are in fact negative. You'd think they'd be positive, but they're negative, and vice versa for the adore crystals, all right? So what am I telling you that for? Well, I'm telling you that because, you see, as Elizabeth so accurately said, we are both masculine and feminine. We both energies. However, the feminine on this planet, which is a Particum, a magnetic feminine planet, that's why we call Earth her, we say she. It's a feminine universe, okay? In our parallel universe, our polarized parallel universe, it's masculine, okay? And the masculine universe, our parallel universe, has been taken over by the patriarchs completely, or it had been until very recently. So in our particular universe, this magnetic feminine universe, if you are a lady or a feminine, you're carrying a lot of motor crystals, and this enables you to align with your twin flame, your twin soul, who has Adore crystals, and this allows for this alignment to come together so that you can make this divine connection, okay? So the divine connection was not wanted, though, by the patriarchs. So in 13,400 BC, they shut the Moda and the Adore crystals off from being able to connect. Now, that was a critical moment. There have been many critical moments in our galactic history. That was one of them, 13,400 BC. They shut those crystals off, so there could be no alignment. And this is where all our challenges began with regard to the difficulties between the masculine and the feminine. The man forgot who he was and his role in this relationship, and the woman was taken over by the patriarchs, just as Elizabeth has said, and just as Jane has been explaining, so that we would be separated, we'd be polarized even more beyond the natural divine connection, the celestial.
And let me just interject. Patriarchs, really, I think we've been calling them kind of just parasites. That's the fallen, the fallen angelics. Okay, so it's the negative ones, and is that when the timelines were scrambled so that we couldn't incarnate on the same timeline that you're talking about. Also, my question.
There have been a lot of timeline inserts all over the place. Yes, holographic
to
inserts.
Stop the twin souls incarnating on the same timeline, so they couldn't get together in the physical.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you see the twin, well, some people call it soulmates, the twin flame. And we're all flames, by the way. We're all flames, and we do have a twin flame, which matches us and aligns us with us perfectly. However, they couldn't allow that to happen for all of those reasons that I've explained. They didn't want those twin flames to align because the power was just too great. It would have eliminated the parasites from being able to take over. All right. So, have you got some feedback from me?
Yeah. Do you have anything? Matt, do you know what's going on? We're getting feedback here.
Okay. I think it's all right now.
Okay, good.
Okay, sorry about that. I apologize. I'm not.
No, when you. Okay.
So just, I don't want to hog the conversation too much, but all of that is what happened. And it wasn't until November 2003 that these separations were fixed. And they were fixed because of the code that's sitting behind me called the Mahadrana, the master key code of the Universal Ark of the Covenant. That code behind me was instituted into the grids of Earth in November 2003, and that rectified the separation. And that's why more and more twin flames are finding each other, etc.
Okay, and I want to talk about that in more detail, but let's just stop for a second and get Jane to, share your truthful. I just love it when you really talk about the feelings of, like, for women, like when you were, the whole gambit that has played itself out in men, or anything you want to comment on what was just said, just to hear from you.
Well, I remember Dave saying in one of his videos that there was a parallel masculine universe. And that is what came and turned off the codes of the feminine here on Earth, because they wanted to shut down the power of the feminine. And then, like he just said, in 2003, the codes were turned back on, and Mother Earth, who is the embodiment of the feminine, is regaining her feminine powers. So I just want people to know that all is not lost, but everything aligns. And she's just been so brutally treated over millennia, and especially below her crust. She's had thousands and thousands of tunnels filled with pain and suffering, and children screaming in these satanic underground bases. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cold. So that's had a really almighty negative resonance effect on everything. And I feel like this is changing very fast, in alignment with what's going on the ground for real, with the white hats and the black hats, and everything is coming together to flip the script, so that we can go back to our original coding, our original DNA coding. The planets are aligning. In fact, did you know your timing is so good, Elizabeth? Because we have the power of the heavens on our side right now. Because on April 29th, Venus entered Taurus, and she'll be there until May 23rd. And Mars has entered Aries. And so right now, both planets are in their home signs, which is a beautiful alignment that's going to bring this harmonious balance of masculine and feminine energies together again.
Well, your intuitive comment is so wonderful on timing, because I was just about to answer Indigo, who asked me a beautiful question, that you just actually answered. And it was a question about, are all our fragmented parts finding their way back together? And are we coming back together? And is it a good outcome? Hopefully, yes. So I think you just spoke to her question. I hope you heard that, Indigo. And if anybody else has any questions, I'm doing my best to also feel this feed too. I've got a lot going on here, okay, guys? But beautiful question. Yeah. So do you think we're on a journey of collecting those fragmented parts of ourselves and to return to our original state? I hope so. So does anyone want to expand on that? Very important question.
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Certainly since, well, a lot was made, wasn't it, about 2012 with the disaster scenario back in 2012. And I can tell you that in our history, we came very, very close to not making it. I mean, you'll discover all the history behind that, but we came so close to not making it. But now, since December 2016, everything has shifted. The energies have shifted. Well, you only have to look around you and discover how many people now are beginning to expand their consciousness through accepting new ideas, asking questions, wanting to know the answers, and not simply taking the answers as truth from the experts and the authorities. They're beginning to expand outwards to find their own answers, which are contained in their heart, in their azure. This is where the truth is. You have it within you. And we spent so many thousands of years asking other people outside for the truth. Now we are finding our own truth. And that is an indication of how, yes, what Jane and Elizabeth are saying about the fragments pulling themselves back together, the magnetic feminine is pulling these fragments back together. The fragments of divine celestial being are coming back together, and it can't be stopped.
Yes. And beautiful. I want to just kind of bring that into the fact that in reality, we are our own holographic template, and we are actually projecting outward, our reality. We're creating our reality. Now, we've been co-opted, we've had our mind controlled, and we've been fed programs that create loosh, that create trauma, that separation, fragmentation. So we are co-creating, with infinite sources. We flash into source and flash out, flash in and flash out. We're creating our reality, and we've created one of a duality. We've created one of separation. And I want to just talk for a minute, and then we're going to fix it in the next session, next week. But all the pain and misery that's happened. And I, especially because in my book, The Infinite Human, and those who have read it, I always hear from you guys all the time. And it's my twin soul journey. And it's been a very painful one. And twin souls haven't been able to, I really believe, stay on this planet because they hold such a high frequency. And I've worked with women as a mental health counselor for many years, and as a reader online, and all the psychic, whenever they want to talk to you, they want to know about their twin soul. And I want to say that, first of all, what Dave said, and I listened to you, Dave, on another talk show. You said beautifully how the creation mechanics of the original twin souls were the same seed Adam and separated, and then came, descended in frequency. So yes, we do have external twin souls, and we are, that is shifting, and we're able to come together more. But before you start looking to it, you have it inside of you. Okay, that's the most important thing. Your twin soul is part of you. It's integrally part of you. And if they're not in your holographic template around you yet, then I would say focus on restoring that beautiful balance of divine masculine, divine feminine. There's the healing, and that's the focus that you need to first inward, because everything all the distortions you clear from your own internal template will eventually be reflected in your external world. So anyone want to add to that or expand on it?
Well, I think you're talking about a lot about the balance of the masculine and feminine within the individual human being, whether they're a man or a woman. And once you get that right, we'll be, if we all did that and we all accessed our divine masculine and feminine within ourselves, then we would be able to reach unity consciousness, because there would be balance and harmony. And that's what these Luciferian, reptilian, parasitical, Zionist, Khazarian Mafia hybrids have been trying to destroy.
The parasites.
So we've got these stereotypical all male, all man, and then we've got these little fluffy little girls running around tripping over their high heels, and neither is perfect. And then on top of that, you've got the whole transhumanist and post-human agenda. Throw that in there. And then on top of that, you've got the false light feminization of men through chemicals and phthalatites or whatever they are. I'm no chemist, but it's in the plastics, and it's leaking into their bodies, and it's changing their hormones in such a way that their testicles only like half descend. So I mean, they've really been very, very busy on a very synthetic chemistry kind of alchemical level, trying to distort this feminine and masculine with everything they've got. But they're just not connected to source. They're not divine. They never will be. We will always overcome, and our DNA will return to its original, what it was supposed to be, in order to live in this new earth that's coming. And we're almost there. So everybody, get in touch with your divine masculine and your divine feminine, because we're almost there.
And I just want to comment to something I'm reading here, one of the comments. Thank you very much for your comment, Shell Brown Martin. And it's a huge journey with me too, because I've noticed a lot of people are having trouble with their either right side or their left side. And I have a whole thing that I wrote about in my book about my right side, and actually severing my tendon and being during lockdown Christmas and being operated on by a Dr. DARPA and here in Sicily, and it was just horrible because but it's been a journey for me to learn to. My whole journey is bringing Peter, instead of lamenting the fact that he died, he's not here in the physical, he's in another flash sequence, he's coming into me. And I think part of the journey, especially for the women now that I think are really leading, and I define goddess as a woman who has that divine feminine, divine masculine in perfect balance. And they were the ones who would work. In Malta, I went there and restored the Crystalla spirals on the goddess temples, because they would hold our mother in balance with the toning and the geometrics and the movements. So many of us are experiencing that right now in different parts of their body. The comment is in the left side. So, okay, so right now it says the left side seems to be aging a little bit faster than your right side. Okay, so, these are, I believe they're clearing the distortions in our field. I'm very optimistic. I don't think you're aging. We're all rejuvenating and having bioregenesis, but they're clearing out. Dave, do you want to add to that?
Well, I can add something which is very profound, and sometimes when I talk to people, some people, not obviously yourselves here, and your illustrious group of people who are listening, they do find this difficult to appreciate. However, with regard to the alignment of the masculine and feminine within you, as you said, Elizabeth, and you also, Jane, with regard to that alignment, which we are all in the process of doing, including myself, and I know that I've made a big shift from my masculine into the alignment with my feminine as well. And what this does, it is so profound, it affects all of your other selves. So perhaps I can explain. Everybody here who's listening, including Elizabeth and Jane, have actually been extant on planet Earth for about 800,000 years. And that means you have other selves, okay, from 800,000 years ago. You have actually 863 selves. Yourself make 864. So all of those other selves are existing right now because time isn't linear, it's simultaneous. This is the difficult part. Everything is still happening in the same place and time, even though you can't see it. And yourselves, as yourself now, are still existing back then, all of the different things you've done. All right. Now, what is the significance of realigning your masculine and your feminine? Wow, it's huge, because what it does, it transmits frequency through the rays of frequency, the rays, as you are bearers of the rays. That ray frequency goes backwards and forwards, future and past. And if any of your other selves had chosen alternative, shall we say, lower frequency decisions and make free will choices, your energy now aligned can offer them the opportunity to shift their frequency. So lots of your selves are shifting their frequency. Now, can you imagine if 500 of your other selves shift their frequency to make it higher frequency, to have more expanded consciousness, such as you are sending them? Wow, that has a massive, amazing effect, not just on you, but on the whole of the life field everywhere.
Oh, happy day. What good news is that? That is so beautiful, beautifully put. And that answers the question that Indigo asked about, bringing our scattered, identities, really past lives or identities, into wholeness or holiness and healing all that. Now, what do you think about that, Jane? I'm sure you have something wonderful to say.
I'm looking at divinity as a whole and not even separating the masculine and feminine at this point. And I'm looking at the fact that we're operating on 3% of our brain power, and even on only 3 pathetic little percentage points, we still manage to get ahead. So imagine when we start upping the ante, connecting with our higher selves, connecting with source, connecting with cosmic wisdom, bringing it into our morphogenic field, upping that percentage, even just 2%, we've won. We move away. We get into our new beautiful earth, and fly off into 5D. It's just so close. I can feel it. I can smell it. I can taste it. And I want everybody to hop on and come for the ride.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up because we finished our first segment. And in the next segment, we're going to really look at how kind of expand on what Dave said, beautifully said, Jane, and what Dave said about how, everything is coming together. Actually, both of you have been saying it. And, the good news, and kind of look at some of the perhaps programs, the victimizer programs that are running, so that you can consciously begin to make that shift out of, and many of them are just subconscious thoughts that you're not aware of, becoming mindful and beginning to shift out of that into this integrated divine masculine and feminine as the oneness consciousness. So let's see, we've got, okay, so we'll take this up next week. And just for our listening audience for this week, can you just tell us a little bit about how to get in touch with you and what you're doing so they can find out more about you in case they don't tune in next week? Dave, you want to tell us?
Well, I'm not. Until the other day, I wasn't on social media at all, and I don't have a
You're right.
website. But I am going to get a website, and I am. I've just gone on to Facebook, and I'm organising it. Jane is helping me to organise being on Facebook, and then you can all come and join in the party and share ideas.
Oh, perfect. And I'll add a link on to my Facebook group, so we'll all be friends. We'll all be friends. And Jane has a lot going on, YouTube and Splat and everything. How can they get in touch with you? And she's a friend of mine on Facebook too. So many of you are friends with her. Jane?
Well, I do have a website because, I'm just that much more hip than Dave. So anyway, that website is right there, janeevershedart.com. And everything is on there. My blog, my Rumble channel, YouTube, which I almost got kicked off by the skin of my teeth. I'm still there. And all of everything is on there. My art is on there, everything.
Okay, great. And please tune in next week and we'll go into a little bit more detail about this. Thank you so much for joining. And also on my website, www.infinitehuman.com, will be replayed and all the information about these guys are on my blog too. All right. So until next week, ciao in the now. That's my new saying. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Infinite Human Talk Show with your host, Elizabeth Monroy. We hope today's episode has inspired you to join the new consciousness renaissance and be the change by reclaiming your true divine infinite nature within and becoming an infinite human and a co-creator of the new infinite earth. Tune in next week for another empowering episode. Until then, have an infinite week.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, bye. Okay, and for those on the live stream, we're going to take just a real short break. Let these guys, you need just a real short break. I need to get some water. Okay, and we'll be right back, like in 2, 3, 5 minutes. Okay, see you back in just a minute, and we'll be right back with the live stream. Okay. Okay. Oops. Almost back. Just a second. I'm in the line of the sun. It's sitting right in my face. The sun right now.
Okay.
I love the sun, but a little bit. Okay,
Wow.
is Jane still coming? Hey, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Wonderful explanation. So, and we've had some great comments. All right, so this section, if we can kind of focus more on bringing up some of the emotional stuff that the men and the women have been carrying, so we can kind of just alchemize it. And then let's look at how we can shift. I always like to take the high activations energy, but how we can bring it into our day-to-day life to make, changes in our life story, really, I call it.
Yeah.
Take action to do it.
I'm on it.
Okay. You there, Dave?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just
Okay, here
I'm
we
just
go.
waiting.
Ready?
Whatever.
The show must go on. Ready? Hello, you divine infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And today we're back with our guests from last week, Dave Evershed. I'm sorry, Dave Evershed. We've got Dave Emery and Jane Evershed. And I read their information a little bit before in the previous program, if you've been following along, but just to go over very briefly, Dave Emery is just amazing, very learned man about Kelonic science, and he's in the process of writing a book I can't wait to hear about, Beyond the Biblical. And he's also a senior fellow at the New Earth University, and offers a very comprehensive workshop there. And Jane Evershed is also a member of that, and she's a visionary artist for an optimistic future. So we've gone over that last week, but if you just want some more information, please, I strongly advise you to listen to last week's before we go any further. And this week we're talking about the restoration of the divine the divine masculine and the divine feminine within us. And we discussed how the distortion began, because our whole universe is electrical, magnetic, divine feminine, divine masculine part, particle, antiparticle, and how and why it was distorted. We got into a little bit of that. And this week we're going to just kind of do a nice healing heroine's journey to heal that trauma that was done to us, to create this division, not just between the sexes, but between our own internal selves, because we are both masculine and feminine. And we're going to explore that and just kind of go down into the shadow self of that, and how it's felt for us as women, being kind of victimized, and also the way it's felt for the men to be the wounded male. And we're going to look at these wounded masculine, wounded feminine archetypes and help to alchemize them and transmute them into the divine feminine, divine masculine. So before we start that, let me start again with Dave, if you don't mind, giving us the seed, the masculine seed that we feminine will expand on. But maybe you could just give us kind of an understanding of what was done to the feminine, and how it was suppressed and why it was suppressed, so we can understand from a more expansive, comprehensive, why so many of us, the infinite human family here, the women have so much trauma and so many sexual misery implants and programs in their holographic reality.
Well, as we've explained last week, it was very, very important for the parasites, as we call them, to not allow the power of the feminine, the magnetic draw, the contracting ability to pull back into source and regenerate, because that is really the power of the feminine, the ability to pull back through magnetism into the heart of source and regenerate all that is within the feminine and all that is around her. So that was critical. The parasites had to stop that from happening. So as they stopped that from happening, and they shifted the pivotal importance of the feminine in the natural divine world. That also had a dramatic effect on the masculine. And of course, it was very difficult sometimes for the masculine to understand what had happened. The shift seemed to be happening to the feminine, to the women, but nothing seemed to be happening originally to the masculine, except that because there was no pulling of his energies back into the stream of consciousness of source, then he couldn't expand his own consciousness. And so he became separate out there in the world. He, for example, I remember I was told when I was 19 by a very, very important senior person in my family, who I didn't know very well, but who decided to give me his advice. He said, what you've got to do, David, you've got to get a good job. You've got to get a good job. You've got to work hard for 45 years. You've got to make sure you have a pension. You've got to make sure that the family are looked after well. You've got to make sure you follow all the rules and all the laws, etc. And then perhaps you can have a couple of years for your retirement with a clock. Now that is what I was presented with at the age of 19 as my destiny as a masculine. So that's what a wonderful picture of life I had been presented with at 19. And this has been the program, the pageant, the narrative for the narrative for the masculine.
Very clear programming there, isn't it? And I hear a comment here. We want to hear more from Jane. So maybe Jane, you could talk a little bit about the Wounded Feminine program, or kind of expand on whatever you want to say.
Well, I did gather a little list of nuts and bolts that should come in handy.
Okay.
Like on the ground, what you want to aim for. But just before I tell you that, I have to say that my father, when I was 18, he told me, Jane, you should be married and have babies and be in a kitchen by now, and you've got to leave school and you can't finish high school. That's what he said to me. So as far as the divine feminine, if you want to attain this divine feminine realm, the nuts and bolts of it are, you
wait, just a minute.
Creativity.
Wait, let's, before we find the cure, please hold that. Wonderful. But I just like to really bring that up, because wow, how limiting is that? I mean, I think a lot of people who are listening to our voices we just need to stop, because I really believe you have to feel to heal and then move on, but wow, how limiting for the men too, because a lot of the women are like, oh, he's always out there. My mother would say, my your father's so ambitious, he's always out there. And then she was like so stunted, because she was very creative and artistic, but I found all her artwork in closets and tucked in the shelves, because all she was given was, cook and raise children and make sure your house is cleaned. So what a tiny level. And so I just want to pull this up, because I'll credit Gemma Star, because she put it on her website, so I took it. I didn't steal it. She said we could have it, but I want to just put these here so we can be aware of them, so we can transmute them. But wounded female attributes, I'll just read them real fast: insecure, needy, unworthy, inauthentic, manipulative, victim, overly emotional, codependent, gossipy, lack of boundaries, people pleasing, negative, unconfident, helpless, powerless, creatively stifled. And how can you not be, if all you can do is be in the kitchen, the bedroom, raising children, getting pregnant, and that's the extent of your creativity. And so we'll look at the male here too. All right. And I thought this was so good. Wounded masculine: unstable, controlling, demanding, aggressive, intimidating, withdrawn, avoidant, indecisive, ambivalent, overly competitive, manipulative, dishonest, untrustworthy, selfish, emotionally unavailable, unable to access heart, no feelings, frustrated, destructive, narrow-minded, weak leader. So, how can you not be that? We've been handed this program, which is just takes all the power, all the joy, all the creativity, all the love out of life. And what ends up happening in so many relationships, hence divorce and all that, is that they begin to take it out on each other. One thinks, oh, they have it made, they get to go out, they have all the money, and the other one thinks, oh, she's got it made, she gets to stay home. And the truth is, nobody has it made. Comments?
Well, it's all a product of myopia. The smaller your vision, the more tormented you become. And this is what is going to bring about this sort of selfish, sabotaging, jealous, isolated, withholding, impatient, ruthless indifference, because you're stuck in there. But in the end, you're going to have to break out in some way or just shrivel up and die a miserable death. So that's why we really have no choice but to explore the positive side of our lives.
Okay, you want to say anything on that day before we give it over to Jane to give us the nuts and bolts of how to get over it, get through it?
No, all I can say is both of you were brilliant. I just loved listening to what you said. You encapsulated everything so brilliantly. You ought to write that down, and I can use it. It's great.
Okay, good.
Well,
okay, now tell us the way out,
so,
Jane. Tell us.
Okay, well, if you in the beginning you think of yourself as the embodiment of the Mother Earth, this is for the women. Okay, you're beautiful, you can multitask, you provide nourishment for your children, you use everything without wasting anything, you're powerful and gentle at the same time. And your milk is a natural immunization against all disease. So you could throw the pharmaceutical companies out the window right there on that one. But what you want to attain in your life is selflessness. You want to direct your energy toward positive outcomes. You need to understand what humility is. You need to know what contentment is. You need to know how to persevere and exude affection wherever you go, and be compassionate and patient and have empathy. But most of all, as a woman, you need to understand love on all of its many different levels and forms, and never be afraid to summons your masculine energy when you need it. That's what I'll give to women. And for the men,
Okay. Wait. Just freeze frame for a minute. Spoken by someone who embodies that, I believe. Let me read what Gemma wrote as the qualities, because you just said them all. Divine feminine, intuitively, highly spiritual, receptive, responsive, magnetic, radiant, healing, nurturing, compassionate, loving, creative, inspired, vulnerable, which kind of surprised me, but vulnerable, expressive, speaks truth, open, surrendered, relaxed, trusting, patient, supportive, emphatic, empathic, yes, formless, flowing, feelings oriented, heart based, abundant, fertile, wise, virtuous. So you nailed it. Okay.
well, I think by vulnerable, she probably meant I think she probably meant the ability for intimacy.
Yes,
allowing.
I really meditated on that.
All that blocking.
Yes. After I heard that was several weeks ago. I've been really thinking about that. And that really is powerful to know your power enough to allow yourself to be vulnerable, especially in sacred sexual intimacy. So powerful stuff. Do you want to talk to say it for the masculine now, and then Jane? Oh, Jane.
Well, I don't want to override Dave. We got our man right here. I think he would be the one to say.
David, why don't you say how to let's say how to get out of the programming for the males, this wounded male.
Well, what you've just been saying, what Gemma said, and of course what Jane so eloquently explained was very, very apropos. I really appreciated it because it's so clear and it was so detailed. And I would say it has so many of the elements of truth in there. I'd never really considered it about the masculine, etc. But I do know that all I can say really is that I do know there's been a shift in me, because for many, many decades, I have been the typical narrative masculine, doing what a man is alleged supposed to be doing. And that created a lot of issues in my personal life. And there have been some difficulties. As in many men's lives. But what I discovered was, and I didn't know it at the time, but I've since discovered, is that I did allow my feminine side to start expressing itself. So some people who might be listening to this will say, well, how did you do that, Dave? Well, it was accidental in my view to start with, but then I started to realize, first of all, I started to have more compassion for the people around me. Now that was significant. I mean, not that I wasn't sort of feeling about them, but I suddenly developed this feeling of compassion, and I realized that every single person is on their own personal journey, you know, as I am, and therefore judgment, which I was very quick to do, was really an irrelevance and just not helpful. So I would say that I started to be more compassionate. And this actually shifted my responses to other people and shifted their responses to me. Okay. Another thing I found is that I realized that being a part of our beautiful Earth Mother, which I had never considered before at all. And when I started to realize that, I started to, for example, walk barefoot on the grass. You know, if I was just walking even if it was been raining and the grass was wet and it's freezing cold, I'd still do it. And the rest of the world would look at me as if I was mad. But what was I doing? Well, of course, I was grounding, and I was accelerating the frequency of my electron field. So I was doing myself a physical benefit. But what was more important is that I became part of the one. I became part of the grand feminine, the loving mother. In fact, I still now every day say, thank you, mother. And that had a tremendous effect on me. That reinforced my ability to connect with everything. And that's what I've discovered my feminine allows me to do, to connect with everything. Whereas before I connected only with competition, success, money, and so on. And now I have shifted my whole persona about these things. And I think it's because I've allowed my feminine to express herself.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's so powerful, I think, to hear that for men from men, and for women from women, giving us permission to break the codes, break out of the, because it's a huge taboo. And let me just read this part about the divine masculine. After you said that, these are the qualities of the divine masculine: take action, initiative, stable, secure, protective, highly present, strong leader, provider, giving, courageous, assertive, logical, decisive, purpose-driven, reliable, respected, courageous, confident, grounded, focused, disciplined, integrated mind and heart. But I think the key that David just said so beautifully is integrating the two, allowing the two, taking, because the feminine is going to give birth to the divine masculine. I think the divine feminine is going to give birth to the divine masculine. And, it's this give and take, this synergy of the two, one softening the other, one, and the women having the courage to step out and to be the masculine in the world when if they need to, defend the children or their nature. And then the men can, well, you could even wear flowers in your hair. I know it's looked at like, oh no, men can't do this, women can't do that. But not to become transgenderized, but I think we can break those barriers down and really feel the fullness of our expression.
Yeah, can I just say, yeah, absolutely. I connected with when you were, Elizabeth, you were going like this. You were explaining it by, it's a dance. In fact, it is the dance of life between with man and woman together, the feminine and the masculine. It is a dance, and when it is aligned, it's a seamless connection, and it's so wonderful and it's so beautiful, and that's within us internally, but also in the collective. So yeah, I like the dance.
Okay, well, let's talk about sex, baby. That's one of the chapters in my book, and I heard you so eloquently describe it, in terms of advanced metaphysics, what truly occurs between the exchange of Christic codes. And, I was with my twin soul, so we actually saved each other, in the process, because he has actually fallen. So he gave me the codes that I had to give him. And really the only thing we had to do was find each other and make love properly, really make love. And that's such a powerful dance between the masculine and feminine that has been so just inverted and perverted. And I'd like to hear about that from you and from Jane, because I think you both have a wonderful corrective program for that.
What do you think, Jane?
Sex.
Go ahead, Dave. You
We
go
were to talk
ahead.
about the
Well,
taboo word.
Because I've
Sacred
heard
sex.
you describe that. Yes, I've heard you describe spiritually exactly what happens. So I would love to hear that
Beautiful.
again.
Yes. Tell us.
Well, at the very beginning of our session last week, Elizabeth asked me about how life begins, how we got here, and I explained that we are pure consciousness, which is the perfection of everything, the perfection of abundance and truth and love, absolute love in unity. So that is the fundamental core of everything. So if we have this relationship, this natural, divine, celestial relationship between the feminine and the masculine, surely it stands to reason that what we're really trying to do is to blend, to merge our own selves and our own expression and our own feeling back into the perfect alignment of pure consciousness. Now, that is what sacred sex truly is. And that is when both the male and the female together merge their crystals. You remember I spoke about the Moda and the Adura crystals, which are naturally part of us. When they are aligned, then what happens is we establish what is known as an flame, flame. We are all flames, of course. And we have an flame in our genital region. And that stimulates an orgasm, which URGASM, from which we get orgasm, etc. Now, this is not simply a physical phase-locked expression of frustration and the release of it. It can be, and that's what it's mostly about. But when you actually access the orgasm through the flame, you open the Edon keys, which are etherically contained in 4 parts of your body. That's the tailbone, the navel, the yumbi, the azare, and the rajna, which is the pineal. And all of those open, and it's known as the Jardin of Edon, the Garden of Eden. Yes. And in that stepping into together as one, you experience the full understanding, the full ineffable, infinite feeling of pure consciousness. You return to who you truly are as one. Now that is sacred sex. That's not just phase-locked frustration. That is pure sacred sex, and it is a natural, divine, celestial phenomenon.
And that's when the 2 become 3, become 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Beautiful. Jane?
Well, what I'd like to do here is just let everybody know that this is not an exclusive heterosexual club, because we're talking about only male and female unity. But if your feminine and your masculine are balanced within, there's no reason that you cannot love fully and wholly. another human being whose masculine and divine feminine is all balanced and in harmony. So in the name of unity consciousness, I just want to make sure that if there's any gay people watching this, it's not an exclusive heterosexual club. And maybe Dave could address that more succinctly than I could, but that's the best way I know how to say it.
Yeah, well, I also want to say too, for many, and we already had a whole session on this. If you want to look back, I did one on twin souls and sacral sexual alchemy. But if you're not with your twin soul, because I know many people, and I just hear you, and I know you, and I've met you in person, and you've confided in me how much you want to have this, thing in the physical, but you are a sacred vessel, and you have your divine masculine and feminine within you. So if you can have beautiful, I believe, make love and open your seals, and I believe, or this is a very sacred thing that actually raises the raising of the kundalini. For me, it would raise up like 7 feet above my head, and really activate me. So it's something that is not shameful. It's not a bad thing, and it's wonderful to make love with yourself, as Woody Allen said. Masturbation is sex with someone I love. So whatever floats your boat. So but we are going to take a really short break here. We'll be right back, and we'll be talking about more how to integrate the divine masculine, divine feminine in your day-to-day life. So stay tuned. And we're back. And we just talked about a sacred sexual alchemy, and we're with Jane Evershed and Dave Emery, and we're about to talk about restoring the restoration of the divine feminine, the divine masculine within, and we're just going to kind of explore ways that we can break through our programming and start experiencing more fully the true essence of ourselves, as I call God or goddesses, that those are the beings that have that true balance, the hierogamic balance of divine feminine, divine masculine within, which allows you to be more powerful, fully present in the world and manifest. So who would like to comment on that, or something else if you'd like to?
Jane, go for it.
Well, you know what? I can't let that Woody Allen comment go, because I cannot hold him up as an example in this world.
Oh, honey, I'm not holding him up. Honey, sweetie, I'm not holding him up as an example, for God's sakes. Please don't put that on me. But what I am doing is quoting him because he's a writer, and I quote writers no matter what. So I don't go into their personal life. So please don't go there. Okay, so let's stick to the topic. I knew that that's a red flag there, but I did want to say that because I think it's humorous on the light end.
Okay. Well, I just think he's a perverted person, so I don't want to.
Well, of course.
But anyway, what was the question?
All right.
What was the question, Elizabeth?
Okay, one of the focuses that we're doing with this talk show right now is to help give people some tools so that they can begin, and I'll just speak from my own personal, I'll take it from here and talk about my own personal life, and I write about this in the book, The Infinite Human, because I think when you ground it in personal experiences, it takes these high-minded metaphysical concepts and makes them tangible for people. And a lot of people have commented on that. And I was raised a Southern belle, and to me, one of the most important things was to be pretty and to be, very charming, and to make sure you could, just manipulate the men around you, because being with a lunar harness, that was the only power I had. And we are very good at that, so we just had the Kentucky Derby the other day. So all the bells were out, ringing. And, but I was also very independent, and I was raised by my father, who was brilliant. He was a minister who didn't believe in religion. And he also wrote many, many books, and he was a great role model. And he began to be a family therapist and started the marriage marriage and family therapy program at the Louisville Presbyterian Seminary. So he raised me like a boy, you know, and I had two younger brothers, and I was kind of like the oldest. So we had our powwows, and while, you know, after dinner, while my mother was down cooking dinner and washing the dishes, and I said, I don't want any of that. I do not want to be a woman. I like this boys club. It's a lot funner. Until I started to reach 13 and 14. And then my mother came up to me and said, you know, you have to watch out, Elizabeth, because, you know, you're starting to develop. And I didn't know what she meant, but I just knew it was something bad. And I had to be careful because I was a commodity all of a sudden, which, you know, my freedom was and then my father's attitude shifted toward me too, you know, and then I was like on the other side, you know, I was weaponized. I was my mother and didn't really love my father, and they fought about sex all the time. And so, you know, I just decided to, I said, well, let's see, I'm looking at the Madonna, Putana, you know, those are the kind of, you can be like the Virgin Mary kind of person, or the blonde bomb that my father wanted me to be. And so I decided I'd be that. And, you know, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself. And then I met my twin soul, and I didn't want to meet him. It was not something I wanted to do. It took me 3 years to say yes, but I finally did. And I found myself, though, being a wife, because he was a doctor and we traveled around of service. So I was like you said, the magnetic, but it was good for me because I needed to learn that. He would come home from after healing and being there for all the other women on the planet to me, and I would magnetize him and heal him and bring him back up. And then, you know, when he died, then I got used to that. I said, I can do woman, because I had a spiritual teacher that said, you really need to know your sex that you're born in. You need to know how to do that before you can take on the other side. So I learned how to do feminine. But when he died, it was like, oh my God, I didn't know if we had money. I didn't know anything about money. I just didn't know financing. I didn't know anything. And it's been huge. I've had to like learn how to travel, how to eat, you know, how to feed myself, how to you know, all the masculine traits that you don't know. And I did it, you know, I'm doing it, but I'm doing it as a female, you know, because I kept thinking, when I tried to do it like the men did it, it never worked for me. So I've learned, you know, and I think now for my voice, I have my own soul mission is to wake up the females, because I really believe, and the first thing I said when I met Sasha, you know, Sona in his Christmas in Bacalar, I said, you know, it's the women who are going to get us out of this mess. Knowing we're both masculine and feminine, okay, there's no war there, but it is the women, because the women, and we've gotten very comfortable at home and hearth and family, and that's nice. But now we need to spread that out with the you know, the force of the masculine. And I always say your power is in your softness. So it's with that feminine softness, but being able to bleed into, well, not really the 3D earth, because that's not going to be corrected, but be there and create the new earth. So that's my story as a woman. And it's been really challenging because I live in Sicily. I live in the place where the mafia was founded. And when I walk around, first of all, I'm taller than everybody. They look at me and think I'm some Amazon. And you know, all the guys kind of have tried with me, but I'm like not having any of it, you know. And they've learned, they don't know what to make of me, but they just know I'm something different. I'm a goddess, really. And I think women need to step out in the world as the masculine and the feminine. They can be both. They're not angry, they're love, but they just let men know that they can't pull what they pull with their Sicilian wives and stuff. So that's my story. And what say you guys?
But go and say something,
Go
Jen,
ahead,
because
Jen.
that.
Well, I've
never
lived any of I've never lived any of the stereotypes ever in my whole life. I was told what to do, and I tried to do it, but I couldn't actually live it. You know, it was very, very difficult. But in the grand scheme of things, when we look at the male and the female, it's up to us to determine the future going forward of how we are going to be in the world. We don't have to take on any roles, or we don't need stereotypes. We don't need role models. All we really need to do is be our complete selves and come from the place of who we really are without having to compare it to what everyone says it is or everybody thinks it is, because that's your fail safe. As long as you be who you really are, it doesn't even matter whether you're a male or a female, because the ultimate goal is to find your purpose in life. And you came to this earth. Do you want it to be a waste of time? What it boils down to in the end is finding out who you really are, whether they're men or women involved.
Well said. Well said. And so true. That's all we can be, is ourself, our authentic self. Dave?
Well, what two great descriptions of how you have lived your lives. I think it's that really actually illuminates how powerful you both are. This is not just me sort of like trying to flatter you in any way. It's rare that you get an opportunity to listen to ladies explain the dynamics of how they have lived their life and what they consider to be the things that they've learned from it. I think that what you just both explained there was totally excellent and very invigorating for me as well. And that's the sort of strength and the power that a lot of women have had to develop when they have been separated from the masculine aspect in life. They have taken both on together, as of course we both do. We all do, because of our masculine feminine connections within us. But nevertheless, what you've both done there is you've stepped up to the plate, not just as the feminine, you've also stepped up to the plate as the masculine. And that is very, very powerful. And that is really what has been required over many generations by many, many ladies. And I take my hat off to you. In fact, your descriptions of how you have lived your lives make me look back at myself and think maybe I could have done a little bit better.
Well, I just want to say, wow, how powerful to hear that from a man. And I think, I just think Jane and I are, all women are like this. Most of them, especially the ones tuning in now, they're all like this, but we just don't usually talk about it as openly because, it's not, we, sip our tea and we talk about certain things. But I'd like this conversation. I hope it reaches and bleeds into the everyday life of all women, because I really think women are going to be the ones who are going to do the change, because they've been suppressed for so long. It's just kind of the karmic balance of things, because, if you look at the true history of our planet before the fall, I mean, women couldn't own property. They were property. The English language, especially, we don't exist. It's the third person masculine whenever you talk about it. And I get on the Americans because, it's like everyone's, the Constitution, well, all men are created equal. Right. And governments instituted by men, for the people, by the people, by men, we've just not existed. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's time for us to exist, not out of anger anymore, because we're not mad at the masculine. We're just breaking the molds, breaking the stereotypes, and like you said, dancing, moving in to our authentic beat within. And I think that when the women all start doing that, especially with the intuition, because it has been something we've had to develop, because we didn't control the external world. We had to control the sons or the husbands, the fathers, the men of the world, through manipulation, and maybe not the best way. But now it's just going to purify it and cleanse it and come out to the divine feminine, divine masculine. And it's an exciting time, I think. So,
yeah. Well,
I just want to say to Dave, can I just say to you, Dave, however much of a jerk you were in your youth, I think you've highly made up for it, and you're fully paid up now.
I'm a fully paid up member. Well, I'm of the human race. I'm so pleased. I've always wanted to be in this position, but actually, look. Let me just add something here. The thing is that we've been talking about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and there's been a separation, not just within our own template but also in the geosocial world. But in fact, you know, girls, forgive me for saying that, but we're all in this together. We're together as one, all of us. And I say that because you see, the parasites have been very, very diabolically clever. They have turned us into something that first began 450 billion years ago. So what did they turn us into? They turned us into a game, which is known as the victim-victimizer blame game. And that enabled them to separate us so that one would be a victim, one would be a victimizer, and the separation would grow and grow and grow, and they'd never get back together. I'm talking about the masculine and the feminine. We have all been victims of this. And you know this because of the birth certificate fraud, you know, where we're turned into corporate fictions. And therefore we are products, okay, like the manufacturer's statement of origin, which is all simply the same part of the same thing. So what I'm really trying to say here is that we are all together as one, all of us, masculine, feminine, it doesn't matter. Even if we're homosexual, it doesn't matter, because we have that masculine, feminine energy within us. And that has been separated because it has made us victims and then victimizers. So the laugh has been on us for millions of years. And the wonderful thing that's happening now is that we've realized that the joke was on us, but that the jokesters are now in the crosshairs, and we know who they are, and we know what they've done, and we're changing it all around. We're transforming our future.
Brilliantly said, and so powerful. Okay, I've got so many questions here, and we're just running out of time. But
can I just quickly say something?
Sure, please do.
I just want to address the issue of transgenderism. The transgender wave that's going through this world now. When you decide that you were born in the wrong body, that goes absolutely against the code of creation source, because that is how you were born. That is your sacred genes coming into the world of how you really are. And this sudden upswing of all these available clinics growing across the country where anyone can go and get their vagina changed into a penis and vice versa is a horrible, sickly, psychologically damaged thing that is being accepted right now in our society. And it's absolutely destroying any possibility of ever reaching that place which Dave referred to as the Garden of Eden. It will never happen. And let me tell you, I know on the inside that the people who created this transgender nightmare, I can hear some feedback. They created it because their goal is to get us to post-humanism, where we are no longer the angelic human beings, and we will never be able to be the angelic human beings. And they refer to transgenders, whether male to female or female to male, they call them the living dead. So that just shows you how they think about that.
That's why I love you, Jane. You're such an artist, and you're so intuitive, because did you read the question? No, you're not reading the questions, are you?
I saw somebody say something about transgenderism. No, okay, I didn't good. Before, but right now I heard something.
Okay, that's good. I'm like, wow, how did you know that? You can see the questions. I didn't know that. That's how technical I am. Okay, good question. Okay. And then, okay, so we're almost out of time. I do want to say one thing, okay, because it does kind of have to do with twin souls. And I just wanted to talk about, we're talking a lot about colonic science and Ashiana and all that. And I am going to have a whole show on that, and that's going to be the 1st of June. and it's going to be about spiritual teachers and spiritual speakers. And quite personally, I think that it's all about us really starting to internalize this and get our own direct connection, and remember this ourselves. I think the time with the whole fail-safe kicking in, the time has come where we are now getting it. And that's why we're not hearing from the speakers. But I know, and I did most of this, I get everything intuitively, and then I look out and I try to see where it fits into the external world around me. And that's how I started to find Ashiana Dean's work and all this. But I studied it all myself, and I had no idea until it's been almost a year now when I got my Facebook name back, got into the community and found out there was a big split between the two. So someone's asking a question about the shield split and what's going on with that. But I will just say, like I said, we don't want to spend a lot of time with that, but I say there has been a lot of attacks on twin souls. And I know my spiritual teachers that before that were Ashiana Dean, they were twin souls. And he had to leave the minute the agreement was rescinded by the fallen angelics around 2001. He had to leave. So he left his body, and my twin soul had to leave too. And I think there was a split in Ashiana Dean and her, and Michael Dean. And I know that was very emotional. My point is to blend that all back, to heal all that, to bring unity back into that, because, I understand it's very painful, like having a mother and father that get divorced, but, we're moving beyond that. We really are, because someone asked a question about that, and they wanted to ask you, Dave, about it. I don't know if you want to just talk about that. He said, where's the collective ascension in the indigo shield unity today? I see some separation in Christic communities, yet I believe the indigo shield is built by many of us, others who do not do the Christic communities. Okay, I'm finding people that I resonate with. Basically, I only have speakers on my talk show who basically have a understanding of colonic science, because I don't want someone on here who starts channeling Metatron or talking about the bloom of doom. So, because I think it's basic knowledge we all need to have. But do you want to comment on that, Dave, or it's kind of a big can of worms to open in our last 10 minutes?
Well, I mean, yes, you'd need to spend quite a long time explaining the details behind the shields. But let me just say, if I can short circuit that and say that to the questioner, yeah, what a great question. And you're quite right to ask it, because it is pivotal. However, the thing is that angelic indigos were born onto this earth with a purpose and mission as guardians, healers, protectors. And what is happening now is that many of us are waking up. I mean, I 20 years ago, I knew nothing about this. So we are waking up. We are now stepping into our pathway, our heroic pathway. And it's not just us, because there are many other star beings who have been born here, and many other race lines, because the angelic human genome is specifically designed to allow other race lines to collect their codes by being born into our race line. So what I'm saying is that this is exponential. It's happening not just through in angelic indigos. Many star beings who follow the Christ code, even though they may not use those words, follow those energies, are all here, and we are all doing the same thing. We're all here together as one.
Yes, I love that. We're as one, but we're all unique and different. And that's why it's not a cult. It's our unique expressions. Jane, final words, closing comments, blessings.
Well, I've really, really enjoyed being on here last week and this week with Dave and yourself. And I feel honored to be a guest on here with such a man of wisdom and knowledge and integrity. And I loved everything we talked about. And I would happily join you again for any other discussion you would want to do with Dave. As far as the feminine and the masculine go, I can't speak for the masculine because I am the feminine. So I'll just say to all the women out there,
You're both.
Pony up. No, but you choose. It's not, you know what I mean? You choose the balance within you so that you can be fully woman or fully male. I feel like the woman will draw on the masculine when she needs it, and the man will draw on the feminine when he needs it. But otherwise, they are totally who they are, which is a man or a woman. So that's my feeling.
Exactly. And that's freedom to be able to go in and out whatever you need, and then, you have your form the way you want to create your morphogenetic field perception. Any closing words, Dave?
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. Thank you to all the people who have been listening and putting in questions. We both, Jane and I, really appreciate the opportunity to be able to just share our ideas here. But my takeaway for today, really is three things: the power, passion, and the purpose of these two ladies that I've shared the studio with. Wow. You are really fantastic, Christic beings, and thank you for allowing me to actually be illuminated by what you have been talking about. It's been brilliant.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank both of you. You guys are like a dynamic duo. You just have such great synergy together, and so really, I know the audience loves you, and I can hear it and feel it from the comments. So definitely, we will have to have you back on, and so we'll just wrap up and say thank you again. I just love you guys so much. All right, and bye to the live stream, guys, and bye. See
Okay,
you next
bye.
week. Bye.